everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 5 of season 2 of Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and I am very well aware that next week we will not be having a Frieren episode because of the Olympics. They're taking a week off, so there will be something else on this channel. There are already extras that I had in the works anyway, so they will be on the channel next week, and then the following week we'll pick it back up with episode 6. But this episode kind of marks halfway through the season, and that feels weird to me. So it's going by too fast. I'm like, we only have like 5 episodes left after this week, and then we'll be done with season 2. And I feel like it's just going by so quickly, but we can't stop it, right? So anyway, I have a couple comments from episode 3 from YouTube as well as Patreon that I want to talk about. I did look at the comments on Patreon for episode 4. Those were great. Thank you all for commenting. I really appreciate it. But episode 3 for Noda said, German lesson of the week, the Etwas mountain range. Etwas means some or any, as in something or anything. Interesting. And then the fortress of Hayes is pronounced that way, means hot. Like that. Nice. So good. Glad to get some German into our lessons for the week. Algum said for episode 3, I didn't quite see Flom's date definition as a boomer thing. Considering her expression in the frame they showed, the vibe I got was more of a troll move, as in, let's see how long I can get away with this in a way. Flom was the one who also gave Frieren advice on the clothes dissolving potion being a good gift for men after all. Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from at it is to try to contextualize it, because I have heard rumors online that the Frieren fandom, I'm trying to find the best way to word this because I am not what I'm about to say. So, not to get political or anything, but I have heard that some facets or factions of the fandom are a bit more, the polite word is conservative. The polite word is conservative. And so that's the word I'm going to use. And so I don't know. There are moments in Frieren where I do, and maybe it's just because I've been told that about the fandom and about how they view the series that it now contextualizes it in a different way. There are aspects about Frieren that do come across a little bit heteronormative, a little bit kind of generalized in ways that I'm like, let's challenge that. Let's challenge that. And so maybe Flom is being just a troll, but she's a boomer troll. Like, you know, what I'm saying is that her definitions of like the clothes dissolving potion being good for men is based on an outdated generalization about men only wanting to oogle women and being kind of objectifying of them, right? There is a little bit of nuance there that I'm like, I kind of see it. So I don't think the mangaka is intending it that way, but it does read sometimes as that. And maybe it's just because I've known that about the fandom that it's kind of like making me look at the series a different way. And I don't want to say anything bad about the series, but I do notice some kind of like heteronormative things. And I'm like, these are playing on a little bit of outdated stereotypes. Even if they are trolling, they're a little bit outdated. So I think we need to be a little bit more open-minded in our mindsets about it. But yeah, sound off down below what you think about that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't give off those vibes at all. But last episode, that whole idea of the date definition, even if it's meant as trolling, Frieren does not take it as trolling. She takes it as being serious. So we need to contextualize that and talk about that and have a discourse surrounding it. But that's just the teacher in me. That's how I roll. But anyway. And then Christopher Peterson says for episode 3, not the greatest first date ever, but saved at the end. We probably only have to wait till 2028 or 2029 for date 2. Well, if season 3 gets pushed back till then, you might not be wrong. So I do like Christopher's comment here of saying the original party had 4 members. It's the standard in many RPG games to have 4, and they did have 4 members for a short time with Science. So yeah, it feels a bit odd with just 3 now. And with what we've seen of the Northern Plateau thus far, a 4th member might not be a bad idea. Yeah, I mean, I'm used to the shonen trio model where there's 3 people in a shonen, 3 main characters. But considering this is kind of more fantasy based, and considering how last episode went, I'm like, I don't think it would hurt them to have a 4th member. But now, who that 4th member is going to be, your guess is as good as mine. But In any case, I am excited to see what is going to happen in episode 5 and to see what we're going to like leave off with before we kind of round out and end this little moment before we're halfway through season 2. So we shall see. Before we also get started, I want to give a quick shout out over to my Patreon, especially the philanthropy tier, to thank them for all their dedication and for also donating a few more dollars each month to help out the channel. In alphabetical order, this includes Alex Cornejo, Alexandra Q, Be Happy, Dana, Damage 3245, Devorin, Daniel, Destiny Marie, Diana Williams, Ichu, Eric, Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, James, L. Freya, Lou Genesis, Lyndon Murphy, Rast, Rose Jennison, Sunspots, Shimoyama, Sean, Translucent Men, Nicholas Zero Anti-Zero, and Jason N. Thank you all so much for your kindness and for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm going to see what we're going to get for this episode, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into Frieren Season 2, Episode 5, the halfway point, y'all. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Okay. I thought for a second we'd be leaving on a cliffhanger. I really did. I thought we were going to leave on a cliffhanger for this episode, but no, they're being nice to us before we take a week-long break, aren't they? I really liked this episode. I honestly liked the first half of the episode better than the second half, even though the second half kind of tied better in with, they both kind of went hand in hand, talking about logistics and talking about the trade and how the Northern Plateau is kind of at. Frieren is presenting some very kind of like disturbing information in a way that you're like, oh, we're just going to go find that beer, going to go in those mines. When I'm like, the reality is that this Northern Plateau is going through some really hard times, and we're just kind of like, it'll be all right. Which that's not exactly what they're saying, but the way that Frieren handles it, which she's like a near immortal elf, so I mean, are we surprised that she's handling it the way that she is? And she's like, my team and I defeated the Demon King. We've been through far worse, you know, which is comforting in its own sense. We'll talk about it in this episode. But one thing I do think I like the first half better, especially with the lesson that it kind of presents to us with your dreams and whether they turn out good or not and what to make of that. I kind of like that better. So we're going to get our screenshots pulled up here so we can go along with the episode and do that here in 3, 2, 1 with my dog chasing this toy. So yeah, the OP&ED will never get old for me. So beer, go to the beer region. Yes, I love when the landscape becomes part of the location. I teach English, so one of the elements of fiction that we talk about that until I really dove into my collegiate classes, setting when I was growing up, setting was something I never really thought about. I like drawing, but I like drawing people. I like drawing characters. I hate drawing settings. I hate drawing landscapes and backgrounds. I'm not great at it, and so my enthusiasm towards it is not there. And so growing up, I just hated the background and the setting. I was like, whatever. And it wasn't until I really got into my college classes and our instructors kind of talked about how important setting is and the role that it can play that I really started appreciating how authors use setting. And here, in this particular episode, setting is very important. There's the mines, there's the wheat fields that create this like brewery heavy community. There's the concept of trade and how it's impacted. Frieren is very much a series that relies upon setting in its storytelling and does a really good job of presenting setting and how important it is. And so I like that we stopped off at this brewery region. Poor Stark and Fern, they are not old enough to drink. So they are not they're not taking advantage of any of this. Although, as someone who's pretty much quit drinking, I can say that I don't miss it. I do, there are some drinks that I like the taste of, but I don't miss the after effects by any means. So this was called the 3 Spikes of, is that like a beer or what? I can't see what it actually says, but regardless, I like that we get into this community and there's lots of like commerce, there's lots of like food, it looks really nice. I mean, here's the thing, breweries bring in money. Booze brings in money. It's addictive, as are other things like coffee and things like that. So, and she's like, and somebody was like, I was talking to old man Foss. He says he almost found bow shaft. So it's kind of become this thing around the community that this old man's been looking for, this dwarf has been looking for bow shaft for 200 years. And they're like, really? And they're like, he's been talking about it since my grandpa was a kid. So I like how they set up Foss and like introducing his character. Also, I want to talk about Frieren being like, oh, I heard that from Mr. Hader. Can we talk about their outfits? Stark is actually wearing something other than his normal clothes. Praise be. Someone had shared a meme that he was going to wear the exact same clothes for every date and every occasion, even to his own wedding with Fern, and I thought that was really funny. But yeah, here he's got like the turtleneck. I also like, does he have like a little metal bracelet on his wrist? Is that something that he got from Fern? What is that? I don't know that. And I like Fern's outfit a lot. It's super cute. It's not quite the dress she was going to wear for her date, but I like the blues and like she looks really good in navy. Really good. Frieren just has one outfit and uses her spells to clean it and make it fresh every day. But yeah, so long ago, most of the continent was ruled by a single empire. And it was an exquisite liquor offered to the emperor. So it's not a complete lie. I'm sure that the area was ruled by one emperor, and I'm sure that it was served. They talked about it being served at parties and stuff, but it was served because it was cheap. And it's kind of like when you go on a cruise. I remember as a kid, I went on a cruise. Well, it was for my graduation, so I was 18. But I remember that my grandmother gave me like a little flute of champagne. You got a little flute of champagne when you boarded the ship. It was like a little celebratory thing. And as a kid, when I was 18, I was like, oh, a flute of champagne. I don't drink. This is so fancy. And then I drank it and it was disgusting. And my grandmother, I remember her saying, well, of course it is. It's the cheap champagne that they give to everybody on the ship. They have to have enough to go around. So you're not getting the fancy stuff. And I was like, oh. So something that seemed very like fancy and exquisite at the time, when you realize the logistics of it, which this episode is the logistics of the Northern Plateau, then suddenly it makes a little bit more sense. You're like, oh, that's why it was so gross, because everybody had to have it. And he would lament about how because of Miss Frieren, he never got to drink it. I love that one of the things Hader took to his grave was the fact that he didn't have to get this good booze. And he lamented to his, like, child adoptive daughter about it. I love he's lamenting to his, like, child about how he couldn't get a hold of this booze, and Frieren's like, I like how at first when we saw Frieren be so nonchalant about this, I'm like, Frieren, why are you not like a little bit more sad about this? And then the show gives us why that is, and so anyway, as they're about to leave, Frieren's like, we need to get out of here. Anytime Frieren says we need to immediately get out of here, it's because she has done something or knows someone in the area and she doesn't want to get involved. She's like, I don't want the past to come back and connect to me, so let's just get out of here and leave it behind. Frieren, you're not subtle, and we've all picked up on it by now. So then we get to meet Foss. He's like, Frieren, it's you, Frieren. I really like Foss. I like his design. I like his design. He has such fierce little eyes. I love it. He kind of looks like Cousin It from the Addams Family. His garb reminds me of a leprechaun. I know that he is not, but it reminds me of that. The green and then the little hat on his head reminds me of like a stereotypical leprechaun. But I like Foss's character a lot. He's kind of adorable. At first I was like, are you joining our party? Every side character we meet that's a standalone character, I'm like, are you going to join the party? But no. And he's like, you're a stickler for details now. How unlike you. Because she said it was 80 years ago. Not, which 30 years after Himmel died. That makes sense. Not 100. I also like that he remembers that she was not a stickler for details. Even in the short amount of time that he knew her. Showing how much impact that Frieren has. Also, Frieren saying, like, Hader's dead. But she said he went peacefully. I like that she adds that with like a little calmed voice. Like she doesn't want to freak Foss out by having him know that Hader is dead. Because he's like, where's that young man that liked to drink with me? It's like, also I feel like when he said young man, it shows that the elves and the dwarves kind of have a different concept of aging and a different concept of time. Because he's like, well, that young man must still be around, right? And I'm like, that was 80 years ago. Like he would have been like 100 and he was a human. And so like, you know, I like that he doesn't quite grasp how humans age, or at least he doesn't acknowledge it. And Frieren's like, yeah, no, right? But it was a really sad little moment. And he's like, I was too late. Aw. I like Stark gives like a little exhale at that point, and he's like, I located Beaushaft, the Emperor's spirits. Will you help me? Can't you use magic? And he's like, follow me. So he takes them. Again, the setting in this series is beautiful. And you have to like, it makes more sense now why Frieren was so upset because, and she didn't want to help because she's like, look at this. He spent all this time. He spent 200 years building a mine to go down to find Beaushaft, which honestly, the concept of the mines, I know in the catacombs where they found all the crystals, there was monsters and stuff like that. But I'm like, you would think that the people, you would think, which there's give and take. You would think the people in the Northern Plateau would be utilizing like underground travel more because there's less of a chance of having to fight underground. But then when you think again of the logistics of it, if you get trapped underground with an enemy or if a demon gets down there and causes the mine to implode and collapse, it's like, it's one of those things where it sounds good on paper and you're like, oh, just build a bunch of underground mines and communicate and travel that way. But the logistics of it just don't quite work out. So, but I thought he went to all this work building this mine just to get some really like shitty liquor. I dug it all by myself. Like, this was a lot of work. This was a lot of work. And especially when I love the twist that he's not, like, people assume, again, we assume and generalize that all dwarves are miners because of the folklore and the media and everything else. But he's like, I grew up in the city and I had to study mining from scratch. I also love that they make mining a trade. Yes, make mining a trade. It is a skill set. It involves crafting. It's not just something. My dad was a miner growing up before the mines in our area shut down, but he was a coal miner growing up. And people just assume that you just go down into a hole and with a pick and you just hit the ground till you find coal. That is not it at all. There's so much more to it. There's a lot of industrial tech that goes along with mining, and there's logistics and there's things like that. I'm going to say logistics throughout this episode because it's in the title, but there's a lots of strategy and organization and things that go into it, and a lot of technology that's involved and a lot of skill that's involved. You can't just go into a hole with a pickaxe and just aimlessly dig until you find something. That's not how mining works. And usually in stories, there's not a lot of care given to discussing that process. It's just assumed. You're like, oh, the dwarves, they just mined Moria. It's totally fine. Nothing to see here. When in fact, there's so much detail to it. And Tolkien goes into a lot of detail about the mining in Lord of the Rings, but in a lot of other media that I've seen, it's just, oh, hi ho, it's off to work we go. And it's like, no, there's a lot of structure to it. And I appreciate that in Frieren with Foss, we at least talk about how he didn't know how to mine, so he had to get the tools, he had to read up on how to do it, he had to figure out the math of how it was all going to work out. Like, I like that the series gives context to this practice that oftentimes is just treated like breathing. It's just treated as it's just there when there's more to it than that. So I appreciated that a lot. That was really nice. So yeah, Stark's like, who's this old guy? And Frieren's like, no one loves liquor as much as him. He spent 200 years looking for Beaushaft. She's like, we stopped by here, but we had to go defeat the Demon King, so we said no. God, this series makes me really wish we'd had a whole like series that was the backstory with these guys. I mean, I love that Frieren does this where they show us these flashbacks of the heroes party. It's like, we're never spoiled. It never overstays its welcome. It's just enough to make you go, ah, damn, that's so cool. But yeah. But Beaushaft. And Himmel's like, no, we have to go. And he's like, but Beaushaft. So he'd gotten 80 years ago that far into it. I love it. That's just such a funny, and Ison's like, look, you're going to have to prime away. I ain't touching him. And Frieren's like, can we go now? What's interesting is Frieren has known about Beaushaft from 80 years ago. Frieren knew about it back then. She didn't say anything because she knew Himmel was on a mission and he was going to do the work for her. But she would have been like, no, let's not do this. She's known all this time that they shouldn't go looking for it because she's known it's been a troll. These elves are being trolls. How unusual. In these ruins underground. So we find the stone tablet. This episode speaks a lot to the elves. The elves being trolling, which I find fascinating. There are times where I want to compare the elves to Vulcans from Star Trek because they're kind of like emotionless and they're just like, we're immortal. what can we do? We're just kind of stuck here, which is interesting, right? But I think this speaks the fact that Millard spent all this time making this tablet that took a long time to carve out, and it's all just a joke. It's just kind of like a dry joke. He's like, I found this stone monument and I knew it was true. And Fern, this is ancient Elvish, saying that Beauchaft is the greatest liquor to have ever existed. And then Millard. Also, can we talk about the fact that Frieren made Fern learn young Elvish or ancient Elvish when she was young? I feel so bad because you could tell in this little sequence here that Fern really doesn't want to learn ancient Elvish. And then Frieren's like, you need to learn to read it so that you can read the grimoires. And she's like, it's probably the most childish we've ever seen Fern, because usually even though Fern's like 18 years old, she like reads so much more mature and older than she actually is. And here you kind of do get to see her being a kid being like, I don't want to read ancient Elvish. And Frieren's like, you gotta learn. There's nothing else to do. Like, it's actually really cute. I like it a lot. But yeah, so it was Millard. Yeah, Frieren's known who this was the whole time. And so Foss says ever since he discovered the inscription, he's dedicated his life to finding Beauchaft. And he's like, it's almost within my grasp. He's like, I found the ruins themselves. But as you can see, there's this big stone chamber. Again, the elves who have nothing but time on their hands, nothing else to do. Millard made this entire underground, like, wine cellar and crafted these ornate doors, everything, put a barrier on it, all to contain a bunch of crappy liquor because they were bored. Interesting. So yeah. And it's understandable why Frieren's like, I don't want to go and remove the barrier. It will take too much time. When she said it would take too much time, when she said that, I was like, oh, is she going to say it's going to take like 10 years? Because yeah, if it was like 10 years, I could see why they'd be like, no. But 3 months, it's like, okay, what is it? What else is there? Because 3 months is not that long. Even in the grand scheme of them going on this journey, 3 months is not that crazy. They spent like 3 months in a log cabin when it snowed back in season 1. So yeah, I also like the fact that she was going to consider it if he had a grimoire for her. She's like, you got a grimoire for me? I'll do it for that. She's like, it would be worth my time then. He's like, no, but I have 20 gold Reich coins. And she's like, no. And I love she's immediately stopped by Stark and Fern, who are like, we need the money. We need the money. We could stay in a nice place and be able to pay off a lot of things if we had it. And this is not that big of a deal. It's not that crazy of a job. It's very doable. She's like, it'll take 3 months to remove. And they're like, that's hardly any time at all. And she's like, is it now? It's very interesting to see them say, oh, 3 months is nothing. And Frieren's like, really? You think so? She's like, don't come crying to me later. So they do all the research. They organize everything. I really like this one shot of Foss just sitting there asleep while they're doing the research. And Stark's just bringing the books back being like, I don't know how to do this, but here's your research. Super cute. Love it. And then they manage to take off the barrier. We'll be able to finish tomorrow. And they went to this very same spot with the party. What's interesting is that at first, Frieren doesn't want to acknowledge what Hader said in here because she doesn't think that it's true. She doesn't think it's going to hold true. And she turns around and says, it doesn't taste that good and it's not worth devoting your life to. And Fern's like, but the inscription. She's like, yeah, elves pass the time in ways you wouldn't believe. Which is, there's something kind of cruel to it because with Frieren's concept of time is like, she's like, I got all this time to do everything. And her passing the time, in comparison to Millard here, almost seems like nice. Frieren's like, I just went off by myself and gained herbs and tried to find weird spells. Millard's way of passing the time is almost cruel, where instead of just, accepting the fact that the liquor didn't taste good and moving on, she made this big deal about making the plaque and saying it was great and hiding it behind this door. So it was going to trick all the humans into thinking, or not just humans, but anybody else like the dwarves or anyone that came to find it, tricking them into thinking they were getting something great when they weren't. And there's something kind of mean about that. Like maybe not intentionally mean, but really dry and kind of like uncaring, which is not how Frieren kind of is. Also, the fact that we get to see more elves. The fact that we get to see Frieren interact with an elf, like Craft's been the only one we've really seen so far, other than the goddess and other than, back at the trial. But here we get to see Millard, and seeing Frieren interact with her own people. This is clearly, I think, before her home gets destroyed, is fascinating. And she's like, you never do anything but gaze off into space, because she's bored. She's like, many of our fellow elves spend their long lives searching for something. Why do you think that is? Because they need purpose. So they don't end up like me. So she says, I've looked all along for this bow shaft, and then come to find out it's worthless garbage. How would you feel? My distant past. This liquor really is terrible. It's the one they serve at coronation. Before coming to this village, I carved an inscription to pass the time. And she's like, well, what was the point of that? And she's like, there is no point. So we got like a little nihilistic view with Millard. Millard's kind of just like, there's no point to anything. It's just whatever. She clearly needed to meet a blue-haired hero to win over her heart when he dies. Which I think Frieren now... that's such an interesting concept. I love the idea they present here of if you aim for something and your goal is that thing, what happens when you finally get it and it turns out to be nothing? And it's sort of it's not about the destination, it's about the journey along the way. It's the friends we make along the way. That's kind of the moral of it. And it's so applicable to lots of things. Like maybe you save up money to buy like a designer bag or something, you buy this object, and then once you have it, you're like, okay, now what? And maybe your goal is to get this promotion or get to a certain pay scale or a job, and then you get it and you're like, okay, well, now what? Like, it's kind of like, what do you do when you get what you're aiming for and you don't get the experience or results that you wanted? Does that make the journey to get it worthless? And Hader kind of like contradicts what Millard says here, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. It's also very lonely. Like, Millard's just very isolated and lonely. So, of course, because Millard's by themselves, they get this thing and it turns out to be awful. And then there's nobody to share it with. There's nobody to like laugh about it or anything. So, of course, Millard feels terrible. It's definitely this series is saying, like, go find friends. Go find friends to share these moments with, because even if it turns out to be terrible, you'll have a story about it later. And that's kind of what we end up getting out of this moment. But for Millard, they're all by themselves. So Frieren manages to break the barrier, gets into the cellar, and Foss is so excited. I love his little arms up in the air. He's like, look at all this stuff here. Isn't this great? And then he's like, drink with me as a toast. And then why did you decline to search for the bow shaft? Hader's so mad. Look at how sad he is. And she's like, well, what if, and again, they're in that same spot, except here's where all the wheat is. What if you spent your life searching for the liquor and it turned out to be terrible? I'd laugh it off. It's such a great thing because, I have memories of being with my friends and we were trying to go get something and it turned out to be a disaster, but we laugh it off later or we talk about it and it's a story. We went one time trying to find this food. Like we searched around, we were in New York City, and we were searching for we wanted to try, we were used to Szechuan Chinese food. We were going to try, the other kind of it. Not Szechuan, but Cantonese. We want to try Cantonese. And so I looked up the best Cantonese restaurants in New York City that were not expensive, that anybody could walk into. And we found this one, and you walked in, it looked great, looked quality, sat down, got our food, tasted it, and we both hated it. It felt like it was soaked in lavender dish soap. I was like, oh, I couldn't finish my food. And I rarely this girl does not finish her food. But I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted at all. And we were so disappointed at first because we were like, oh, this is not what we expected at all. We searched for the best thing and it didn't work out. But now, and then looking back, there was stuff that happened after that story that was really fun and funny, and we look back on that now and we're like, remember we tried that terrible Cantonese food? And it's just fun, right? We just laugh it off. So it's kind of like this moment here. I mentioned Malort because I'm from the Midwest, and Malort is this nasty liquor, like bleh, it's so gross. And it is especially up in the Chicago, Illinois area, if you're ever in Chicago, it is a rite of passage that you try a shot of Malort. It's disgusting. If you don't like liquor, don't ever do it. If you like liquor, you probably shouldn't do it, but you should get your friends to do it. And it's a rite of passage. You're like, let's have a shot of Malort. It's disgusting. It's the worst thing I've ever tasted in my life. Ugh, it's so bad. But it's like a joke is that, oh, it's the fabled liqueur of the Midwest. And then you have it and it's terrible. And you just laugh about it. You're like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, haters like it's just, it tastes better when it's enjoyed with friends. I have had many a college nights with a box of wine, of cheap boxed wine, right? And Frieren is like, oh. And, there's probably a part of Frieren, I like that she smiles here being like, this is the worst tasting drink I've ever had. I think there's a part of Frieren that wondered if she could trust Hater's words, if she was like, do I trust Hater when he says this, that the drink is best enjoyed with friends? I think she was worried that Foss would not have those same opinions as Hater, and it would discourage him, or he searched his whole life to find this thing and it turned out to be a bust. But, instead she kind of applied the attitude that Hater had in the moment and was pleasantly surprised when Foss agreed with her. And he was like, oh, I'll just share it around the city and make everybody drink it. It'll be so fun. And then we'll get to that in a second. Also, Stark, my dude, I love his little face here where he's like, ugh. I love his little face here, but my dude, just take a sip. You don't have to take a damn chug. Like, you took a big guzzle. I'm like, don't do that. Why would you do that? No, these kids will never drink, thanks to Beaushaft, which, good. You shouldn't. It's not good for you. It's so funny. But yeah, so then they have this party, and he's like, my search ended in disappointment, but I've never had such a fun night. Yeah, it's just making the most of it. Sometimes when things don't work out the way that you want them to, it's enjoying them with friends and making the most of that occasion, which, again, makes the elves like Millard seem really lonely and really kind of sad. Which is, I like that Frieren talks about the price of immortality, that because they outlive everyone, there's such a lonely existence in that. And then the rest of Frieren is about the vibrancy of mortality. Like, you only have one life, enjoy it to the fullest, because that's what you get. So, it was good. I really liked the first part of this episode. He's like, I'm glad you all are here. I liked Foss. Foss was adorable. Also, that giant-ass beer barrel is huge. Absolutely huge. But yeah. So, then we have the second part of this episode. Now, I will say, I don't know how you all feel about the pacing of the half episodes. Most of this season so far have been just like little half episodes where we have like one chapter or two is in this first part of the episode. Then we have another part of the episode. I don't know if that has to do with like the health of the mangakas, if it is why it's paced like that. Like they did a couple chapters and they took some time off and they came back and did some more chapters. I don't mind it. Sometimes it reads a little choppy, and sometimes it feels like we rush to get to fitting it all into one episode. So there's that, but I don't mind having it split in half. I don't think it's bad necessarily, because the quality of the episode and the quality of the stories in each like segment are good, right? They kind of make up for it. So we're in the Norm Company territory. Can we also talk about how like that is the most makeshift of tents? It is so tiny. I'm like, ooh, but there's no caves around, right? So they're having having this, not limbus bread indeed, but this clunky dry bread. I love Stark saying that it's not a sound a food should make. No, not at all. But they're on like the bare bones rations until they get to the Norm Company, which love the layout. Love the layout of this. We don't get, what's nice is that until we get to the bottom of the hill, we don't see that the bridge there is out. So from this distance, you're like, oh, this place looks amazing. It's this fortified city. They do trade and commerce. They've helped to like enrich the region. So when they're like, but Frieren, you said that trade wasn't going well, so what's the deal? She's like, I don't know. It's something to do with the Norm Company. And when they get to the bottom of the hill, that's when they see that the bridge is out. So I like that things are just set up. Also, giving me Was it Aurora the Guillotine? Giving me vibes with her, with the balance and the scales. Like that. An armed trading company with the logistics network, which you would need in the north. And a military force to supply the villages dotted across the northern plateau. Nice. So yeah, they've set up this strong fort that the grandson is having a lot of trouble with now because they're running low on funds. He's like, if we can just get some money, we can get some trade going. And luckily for him, Frieren knows exactly where to go. That was the one part about this. That was the one part about this episode that I didn't care as much for the second half as the first half. Is that the pacing seemed a bit like, let's hurry up and get this done before the episode ends. I got that vibe because I thought it was gonna be a two-parter. I thought we were gonna end with, oh no, Frieren's stuck in the mines. Now Stark and Fern are gonna have to figure out how to get her out. And instead, Frieren's like, oh, actually, I'm totally good. There's some silver over there. I'll be out in a jiffy. Hold on just a sec. And then it was like, boom, 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 done. That was the only part. I felt like there could have been some more time spent here, especially with the grandson, especially with the whole thing with the trading company. But if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. I do love the little thing here where as they're checking Fern's mage papers, Frieren has her back to them. She is not wanting to be spotted at all costs. And this guy's like, hold on. I love he's like, wait a minute. You're an elf. You're Frieren. We have orders to go and find you and take you to the leader. Okay, I want to see these posters. One moment, please. I want to see these posters down here. Okay, so the posters we have down here. Frieren is hot and center right there. Ison is right next to her, which is funny. We have one guy named Bonbon, and then Kutch, and then Tort or Tori. There's another guy, and then there's the other guy there. So I like that Ison and Frieren are the ones that stand out. Maybe because since Hader and Himmel have died, they've put those posters off and they don't keep track of them anymore. Interesting. The one guy with the mohawk looks interesting. So yeah, so then they get front row seat with the grandson, who's like, your party owe us a lot of money. What's interesting is when they reveal how much they owe, and I'm assuming it's because of interest over the last 80 years, because what they borrowed to begin with was not that much. Not as much, I don't believe. So he's like, you're a mage of the party of heroes. You're going to pay off the debt you owed 80 years in full. And she's like, oh. And they're like, I love that Fern's like, you've been carrying debt, Miss Frieren? And she's like, yeah, I know. Oh my God. Don't want to talk about it. She's like, just a little. She's like, I was told I could pay back any time. I thought I had a good credit line. Whenever Frieren goes, I love Fern's face being like, Grandma? And Frieren's like, but you told me I could pay back anytime. I love when Frieren's like this. It's adorable. And they're like, verbal agreements are no good. Nope. My predecessor's predecessor was lax in that area, but I am not. So 3 straw gold, 20 Reich gold, and various silvers and coppers. He's like, you got a little bit here, but it's not nearly enough. And she's like, well, your grandfather did us a favor so you can keep the chain. I like that Frieren's like, well, because of your grandfather, we stopped the Demon King. So thanks for being part of history. Now, if you'll excuse me. And he's like, oh, no. The humor in this part was really funny. I loved where he's like, no, you owe us a lot more. And she's like, I have to work in the mine for 300 years. There is a part of this where I'm like, Frieren, are you trolling these poor children? These poor children. Fern was ready to burn this place to the ground. Fern was ready to like stage a massive coup to break you out of the mines. And Stark was going to go along with her. And you did this all for a little joke. Like with her little like pickaxe. Girl. I was like, really? That was really funny. I feel like she was just playing a joke with them. 300 years. I think the grandson knew that she was going to find silver or whatever way before then. I feel like he knew that. But I just love where she's like, Frieren, beyond journey's end. And she says, my journey ends here. Could you imagine if Frieren hadn't found the silver underground and she was just stuck there and Stark and Fern are like, and then they try to bust her out and they get imprisoned and that's the end of our story. And she's like, why are you dressed like that? Where's your bag? And then these guys, my thing is, I think she knew from these guys all along, the moment they came to get her, she's like, we're going to go strike silver and be totally fine, guys. Just stick with me. But this, it's so funny. She's like, bye. Girl, these elves have so much time on their hands. I like Stark being like, what? So good. So yeah, he's like, no, the documents show that when converted to right gold coins, the most trusted currency, she owes over 300. Okay, so what they originally borrowed 80 years ago, I like this conversation of how currency has changed in the past 80 years because she owed... they gave her like certain coins, but the coins weren't the current currency. So now if you adjust for inflation is essentially what he's saying. If you adjust for inflation, it's 300 gold coins. And he's like, do you think you could produce such a sum? And Fern's like, no. Stark's like, what are we going to do? So yeah, she's like, I don't like the mines. They're hot and dusty. And then the guy's like, the president told us about you, Miss Frieren. So the president knew all along that she was a powerful mage. And he's like, she can find the silver. She can find the ore, whatever we need. We just need to make her do it. Like, essentially, she didn't want to go find Beaushaft, but Stark and Fern made her do it. And there was no logistical way for her to get out of it at the time. And now they're like, no, you're not going to get past here until you do your job. Help us find the stuff that you owe. We know you can do it. And she's like, I don't want to. So, yeah. So the president was on it from the start. He knew. Now, I do appreciate that they show us with her being a powerful mage, finding the silver and tracing it all throughout. Like, this sequence was gorgeous. I loved this sequence so much. It was really pretty. I'm like, what is this orb on the movements of the earth? It was a beautiful shot though. Yeah, like, I love it. That's probably gonna be the thumbnail, the most unassuming thumbnail of all. Unless Foss makes the thumbnail. But yeah, and then she's like, and they're like, are you certain this is where it is? She's like, who do you think I am? I was summoned to do this, bitch. Dig here. And then the president comes down being like, look, my grandfather told me about you, how great you were. I knew that if we cornered you here, we'd make you help us out. And he kind of talks about how his grandfather started out from nothing as this backwater noble. And he had a dream. He was a great man who invested in the barren land and built this network. At the time, nobody expected much from the party of heroes. So he provided us with the funds with no repayment deadline. And I kind of like that because it shows like the beginning of this entrepreneurial like experience where he's like, yeah, he's like, we're doing great. We got a great network going on. We're getting supplies. You guys are off doing your thing. Sure, I'll give you a loan and you guys can pay us back whenever. And back then, I wanted to point out like how small it was back then. Because like, what is it, 1, 2, 3? Because what is it, 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 15 gold coins there. They just made 20 by helping Foss get the barrier off. So back then, like, the equivalency, it was so few, but it helped him in that moment. And I like this idea of these small investments. And he's like, look, she's like, there's some reason you came all the way to the mine, right? And he's like, well, the logistics in the Northern Plateau are in a terrible state, you know. She's like, yes, even my companies complained they've never had such hard bread. He's like, well, I'm not fond of it either, but conditions have worsened. And we've lost a third of our army and caravans fighting the demons. So, okay, we get to see these demons with scythes look terrifying. What are these? These little, like, Grim Reaper demons. Oh, my. And there's, like, these, like, Griffith Hawks everywhere. There's this guy that looks huge with the big giant cloud strife sword. Interesting. Okay, well, the little scythe demons are things to come. Our logistics network is in ruins. And he does the Arthur, like, clench the fist. And then we see the bridge. If we were a nation, we would have fallen already. But we're not. We are a company. We're a trading company. As long as we have money, we can always rebuild. I like that he also says it's the goddess's luck that came, and then the coin lands on heads, which is the goddess's face. And I like that Frieren's like, yeah, I don't really care for merchants. I felt the goddess must have brought you here. That scrap of paper representing your party's debt gained tremendous value. But our mine's still under development, but if we could strike some silver, We would turn a huge profit, enough to forgive your debt. Should be easy for you to find, eh? She's like, so you're coercing me using a scrap of paper. That's why I don't like merchants. But again, the president brings up, he's like, if our network falls apart, a lot of people are going to die. And she's like, I know. Himmel's already told me the lesson. So I don't know if this is after she struck the silver or before she struck the silver. I'm guessing it's before, because I guess it's before these guys came. I guess the president came down, talked to her, and said, please save the people of the Northern Plateau. And then the other guys came and she was like, I hate mines, but let's do this. I guess so. Yep. But if you help us, you'll have enough soft bread to eat for days. And she's like, you're just so shrewd. But yeah, you've got a deal. Anyway, I intended to repay the debt I owed your grandfather. She's like, it might have been for another 100 years, but... So yeah, I like that they struck this bargain. I like they found the silver. I like that she goes back to Stark and she's like, okay, I'm back, let's go. And Stark and them were like, we were discussing how to save you, Miss Frieren. And I like that Fern's like, I was ready to go to town GTA style. And she's like, God, I love it. I love Fern. I love her like stoic dryness. It's great. And Frieren's like, well, we won't be needing to do that. We're going to be eating soft bread for a while, guys. We're all good to go. Nice. So yeah, that was a good episode. I really appreciated it in this series. It's a good halfway point. Again, I think we need another party member. I think we need a fourth party member if we're going to survive this Northern Plateau. They've done a really good job at this point of setting up that things are not great in the Northern Plateau. And I do appreciate, I talked about this at the beginning of the discussion, that Frieren kind of like, it presents these kind of scary situations and dire straits in a very digestible, but not like melodramatic way, almost to a fault. Frieren almost is just like, yeah, people are dying everywhere. And it's like, ah, but I do appreciate it because in a lot of series, it would be like loud noises, death and destruction, explosions everywhere. No. Here, it's almost handled kind of realistically, where it's like, yeah, there's some bad stuff going on. It's not destroying our everyday way of life. We're humans. We keep going. We keep moving. But there are some bad stuff going on. So if you could help us to minimize that, that'd be great. I think that's a very realistic approach the series takes. And it works really well for the tone of the show, and I like it a lot. But yeah, I ended up liking the president. He was very shrewd, but he was like, old lady, you're going to go in these mines and help us find some silver because we got some things to do. You got places to go, and so do we. So it worked out really good. But yeah, so I enjoyed this episode. I am very curious to hear your thoughts down below about it. We will not have Frieren next week. We're going to take a break. There will be something on this channel for Wednesdays, so tune in and see what that is. But then the following week, we'll be back with season 6. And I'm very sad, if anything, that we're already halfway through the season. Not ready for that. So anyway, I hope you all have an amazing week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Bye.